Welcome in. Farzy Wasugian here with you. Yes, that's right. Time for another episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast on a Monday night here as the Chiefs 11-1 in the playoffs right now, but a lot of things to still work on here. A lot of things to go over here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Going to be talking about the Chiefs and coming off that win over the Raiders as the narrative continues to be the offensive line and the pass protection issues that the Chiefs are dealing with right now and the frustration Mahomes has with the offensive tackles. Going to be spending a lot of time talking about that. The Pro Bowl list is out just for the starters and the leading vote getters, I should say, from both sides, AFC and NFC. You'll be very surprised who the Chiefs have as some of their leading vote getters. We'll talk about that and whether there should be some kind of a change in Pro Bowl voting and a lot more. Farzy Wasugian here with you. Appreciate you guys joining me on a Monday night. I see you guys coming into the live stream here on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate you guys joining me on a Monday night. The hangover from the holiday weekend for a lot of you guys. So come on in, sit back, relax, and let's chat it up here. A lot of things to go over on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. So we'll get into it shortly. Want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. College football and the NFL slowly winding down, but of course you have college basketball, the NBA, the NHL, all in full swing, and the best place to get your tickets is from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and if you're a new customer, use my promo code FARZINE, and you will save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Get your tickets at SeatGeek.com, and at checkout, new customers can put in my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off their first purchase from SeatGeek. Jim says, all I want for Christmas is Chiefs touchdowns. Yeah, I think we all want an offensive tackle. Might have had an early Christmas gift there with DJ Humphries. We'll see, and we'll get into DJ Humphries. Andy Reid did do a press conference today, more of a Zoom teleconference, whatever you want to call it. And was asked listen, I get critical sometimes of the local media and the questions they ask. I got to be honest. I thought every single question today was a pretty damn good one out there. Had a little bit of fun with Andy Reid talking about his appearance on the Christmas special, A Love Story, whatever that movie was called. I'm sorry, I thought it was boring. We'll get into that another time. But man, I thought there were some good questions in that. A lot of the questions surrounding the offensive tackles. So a lot of things were covered on during that press conference there. And I think if you're Andy Reid, I mean, listen, I understand there are people out there, because I get these comments sometimes. Why should I listen to you? Well, first off, you're not forced to listen to me, but you're choosing to, and you're commenting. But I get the idea that, we shouldn't ever listen to people who don't play the sport. Why? Just because someone's never played the sport doesn't mean they don't have any knowledge of what's happening. Let me give you an example. And I'm not saying this is what won the Steelers the football game over the Bengals yesterday, but with the game on the line, what do the Steelers do? They sub in Justin Fields. And every single person, from the announcers to every single person in that stadium and everybody watching at home, knew that the Steelers were going to go for a fake and that Justin Fields was going to go on a keeper for a first down. And that's exactly what Justin Fields did. But for whatever reason, everybody knew that except for the defensive coordinator for the Bengals and the 11 players. My point is, just because you don't play the sport doesn't mean you don't know jack shit about what's happening on the field, the product. My point is this. If you're Andy Reid and you're constantly getting all these questions, it's like, look, maybe, people in the media and the fans are not there behind closed doors, but it's very obvious Patrick Mahomes is not happy. I went back and rewatched the game, and Patrick Mahomes was not happy. He looked pretty upset. When was the last time you saw Mahomes upset like that? Twice last year One was the Kadarius Toney offside call. He was lashing out at the ref, which, I said at the time I thought it was silly. But I think the reason he was doing it to the ref, because he doesn't want to go after his own players like that on the sidelines. You never want to do that. And then the second time we saw Mahomes upset last year, same player, same month, Kadarius Toney. I think it was exactly a week later, if I recall correctly, in New England when the ball went off of Kadarius Toney's hands for an interception. And Mahomes was visibly upset on the sideline. It's like, what do I got to do? I'm hitting him right in the hands. And what happened to Kadarius Toney since then? He never played a single snap for the Chiefs the rest of the season, and only other time we saw him was in the preseason, and he got cut after that. So what happened on Friday when Mahomes was visibly upset after taking a sack on third down? He goes to the sideline. He's clearly upset. It's not clear who he's talking to. My guess is Matt Nagy. But what happens right after that when the Chiefs come back out? Now, it was a short drive, but what happened? Wanya Morris was not in the game. They put Joe Thuney in at left tackle, shifting him from left guard to left tackle, and they put Mike Caliendo in at left guard. Look, it was only 3 snaps, but I will say I actually liked what I saw from Caliendo on those 3 snaps. I mean, I would prefer Thuney is there at left guard and that DJ Humphries is playing left tackle. But man, I'm just at the end of the day, it looked better than when Wanya Morris was out there, unfortunately. And let's talk about Wanya Morris for a bit, because I think we have enough evidence right now to just state this guy is not a starting offensive tackle in the NFL. I know he played for filled in for Donovan Smith last year when he was hurt. Actually had some flashes, had some moments. I had some struggles as well, which is typical for a guy who is a rookie, taken in the 3rd round, almost the 4th round. But this year, when Wanya Morris' name was called, well, first up, let's back up a bit. Why was Wanya Morris a backup? Well, he got injured in the preseason. And when you get injured in preseason, the training camp, and you're competing for a starting spot, odds are you're going to be way behind the 8 ball. So Kingsley Suamataia, who I had predicted would win the starting job, he pretty much won by default. Looked okay against the Baltimore Ravens, but against Trey Hendrickson had his way with Suamataia. So what do? They pull Suamataia out of the game. They put Wanya Morris in there. He wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad. And I'm looking at Wanya Morris and his stats right now on Pro Football Focus. He didn't allow a pressure against Cincinnati. He allowed 2 against the Falcons. He allowed 2 more against the Chargers. Okay, I mean, it's not bad. Against the Saints, he allowed 4 pressures. It's not bad. It's not good either. 2 pressures allowed against San Francisco, 4 against the Raiders, 5 against Tampa Bay. Oh no, we're starting to have some issues here. He got hurt in the Denver game. He didn't play a lot of snaps in that game. Only 15 pass blocking snaps and 7 run blocks. So total 22 snaps. Suamataia came back into that game, and I tweeted right when he came in. I said, okay, let's see what Suamataia is going to do. Didn't look good, unfortunately. A week later, against Buffalo, 2 pressures allowed. Against Carolina, 4 pressures allowed. And against the Raiders on Friday, 8 pressures allowed. Now, to be clear, this is Pro Football Focus number. If you watched the game against the Raiders, and I'll put it on the screen right now, bear with me for just a moment here. Some websites will measure some of these stats differently. How one website will view a quarterback pressure, other websites will view it differently. So there you see it on your screen right now. Next Gen Stats, which is a big partner of Amazon Prime Video for these NFL games, they recorded 11 pressures allowed for Wanya Morris on Friday. Yeah, there was a game last year where he allowed 12, and I think it was the Bengals game against Trey Hendrickson. I think. I mean, what other game would that have been? But against the Raiders, he allowed 11, according to Next Gen Stats. Pro Football Focus said it was 8. So whether it was 11 or 8, It was really bad. Either way, Wanye Morris is getting worse as the season goes on. Jerry says, is Morris playing hurt? Well, he's not on the injury report. At least he hasn't been on recent injury reports. Let me double check on that. But I don't recall him being on recent injury reports for the Chiefs. And if he has been on there, it hasn't been a big deal. Let's see. This was for week 13. Yeah, I don't see him on there from last week's. Jawan Taylor was on there with an ankle and a knee. By the way, I've mentioned this before. Jawan Taylor always it looks like he's twisting his ankle when he's lined up. It's just weird. By the way, speaking of lining up, how is it that we're almost 2 years into having Jawan Taylor in Kansas City? The guy just does not know how to line up. I mean, how is this happening over and over and over again? I think Andy Heck is responsible for this. I think Matt Nagy deserves a lot of blame for this. And the head coach, Andy Reid, deserves a lot of blame for this. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not suggesting you fire those guys. I think Andy Heck is a great offensive line coach. Matt Nagy, I mean, listen, I don't think he's terrible as some people make him out to be. I don't think he's great either. Andy Reid, I mean, I don't need to go over Andy Reid. You guys don't know about Andy Reid just as well as anyone else. But how is it that the coaching staff is constantly letting him get away with this? I mean, you don't know how to line up. This is going to be an issue. And if you don't know how to line up, the coaches need to address it. I'm sure the coaches have talked about it, but it's continuing to happen over and over and over again. With Wanye Morris, again, 8 pressures allowed. According to Pro Football Focus, Next Gen Stats says 11. Again, take whichever one you want to run with. I'm going to go with the Pro Football Focus numbers because they're a little bit more generous, I guess, when it comes to pressures allowed. That is still a big number. It is bad, and that needs to improve drastically. There's a reason why when your franchise quarterback is complaining to the coaching staff, then the coaching staff is going to make a change, and that change was Wanye Morris out of the game, and they shifted their all-pro left guard to left tackle. Look, not that I think Joe Thuney would be a terrible left tackle, but I also think he's maybe too slow for that. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Joe Thuney. Guards, there's a reason why guards are guards and tackles are tackles. Are there some people out there who can do both or play multiple positions on the offensive line? Sure. But generally speaking, it's just easier to stick out what you're good at. There's a reason why they got DJ Humphries, because they prefer that Thuney stays at left guard and that they go out and find another solution. And we'll get into Humphries shortly. But when you look at Wanye Morris and his overall body of work this season, he has allowed 35 pressures this season. That is tied for 6th most in the NFL. I'm sorry, not 35, 33. Pardon me, two less pressures there. Meanwhile, again, tied 6th in that category. Jawan Taylor has allowed 7 sacks. That is tied for 6th most in the NFL. So you have a left tackle who is tied 6th in the NFL in pressures allowed, and you have another tackle who's tied 6th in sacks allowed. We got an offensive tackle issue here. The Chiefs, what did the Chiefs do after Super Bowl 55? They revamped that entire offensive line. What did that include? Cutting Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. Was it the right move? I guess so, because Mitchell Schwartz never played again, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he ever played for another team after that. Maybe he got some calls and interest from other teams, but I think injuries unfortunately just caught up to him. So Mitchell Schwartz never played after that. And as far as Eric Fisher went, he went to Indianapolis very briefly, and I know he retired shortly after that. So I think the Chiefs made the right move in letting Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz go. The problem is their replacements have not been the best. At right tackle, who was the first right tackle to play after they cut Schwartz? I think it was Lucas Niang, who they recently cut. I thought Lucas Niang was actually good in 2021. If you remember, 2021 was the year where the Chiefs had 3 rookies on the offensive line, center and Creed Humphrey, right guard and Trey Smith, and a right tackle in Lucas Niang. And they all looked great early on in their careers. But unfortunately, Lucas Niang got hurt, and we never really saw much of Niang after that. Hardly ever saw him on the gridiron in a regular season game. What happened with the left tackle? The Chiefs traded for Orlando Brown. I think they gave up a first-round pick to get him. I think it was, yeah, first-round pick to get Orlando Brown. Did not look good at all in his first year with the Chiefs. In the offseason, they actually were wanting to give him a 6-year deal, which I thought was ridiculous. And I think it proved to be a bad move. Thankfully, he didn't accept it, but he went on to lead the NFL in pressures that year in 2022. Actually, both the left tackle and the right tackle, Andrew Wiley, they were numbers 1 and 2 in the NFL in pressures allowed. Chase says Eric Fisher was trash. I don't agree with this. Early on in his career, Eric Fisher did struggle immensely. And in fact, we had Kendall Gammon on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he actually compared Kingsley Suamata'ia's slow start to Eric Fisher's slow start. Fisher got better as time went on. It took a while, but he got better as time went on. And Lee, yeah, I see your comment there. I mean, Orlando Brown goes to Cincinnati. Last year was his first year with them. He led the NFL in pressures a lot, so obviously it was a smart move for the Chiefs to let Orlando Brown go. Went to the Bengals of all teams, which I thought was funny, but topic for another time. As far as the Chiefs' left tackle last year, Donovan Smith, he was not too much different than Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown was number 1 in pressures allowed last year. Donovan Smith was right behind him. And Donovan Smith, the only reason he did not give Orlando Brown a run for his money for that stat, not that you ever want to give anyone a run for their money at that stat, but it's one of those things where he got injured and he was on in the running, I guess, to be a league leader in pressures allowed. Again, which isn't really a good thing, but again, neither here nor there. So what do you have now? You went and you drafted Kingsley Suamataia. You kept Wanye Morris, and you wanted those two to compete. Neither one of those have been good. Andy Reid was asked about this today in his press conference, and it was actually a really good question from Adam Teicher, who's been covering the Chiefs. I believe the same year Marty Schottenheimer came to Kansas City. And the question was, why haven't things worked at left tackle? Andy Reid had a really weird answer. Andy Reid said that they're young guys and that they've been facing a lot of good offensive tackles, a lot of good pass rushers, and those pass rushers get the best of the offensive tackles, the left tackle specifically. Okay, he's not wrong. I mean, he's right. Yeah, there's inexperience. There's the matchups just aren't there, but it's not like they're playing all pro pass rushers every single week. I mean, they're going out there making some of the most mediocre edge rushers look like Derek Thomas. I mean, you can't be doing that. The most important position in the NFL is the quarterback position. When you have a franchise quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, the next important position is your left tackle and all the way through the rest of that offensive line. Because if you do not have an offensive line, you don't have jack shit. Super Bowl 55 proved that. The Chiefs dealt with a lot of injuries that year on the offensive line. Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher, Kelechi Osemele, several others. Let me look that up right now. I can't even recall all of the Chiefs offensive linemen that started that season, and I think it's worth revisiting that real quickly here. So let's go to the start of the 2021 season. Yeah, that's when that was. So let's just go to September of 2021. Lucas Niang was there, but did not. No, sorry, that's 2020. Oh, okay. I'm a year off. I got to go to 2020. Bear with me one moment. There it is. You had Fisher. You had Nick Allegretti. I saw someone in the comments mention Nick Allegretti. Your center was Austin Ryder. Boy, I completely forgot about that name. Kelechi Osemele, former Raider. He was your right guard. Yeah, I remember Osemele was on there. And you just got a lot of guys who got hurt as the year went on. Mike Remmers was your starting right tackle. I don't even remember the left tackle. Yasir Durant, whoever it was, I mean, the Chiefs had nobody. You had 5 backup offensive linemen in the Super Bowl. And Mahomes was getting through as the season went on, but once the Eric Fisher injury occurred, I mean, you had a junior varsity offensive line, and that played a massive role in the Chiefs losing that football game. And a lot of people didn't see it coming. So I just think right now, when you look at the state of the Chiefs at this moment, they're 11-1, which is good, but they've got a lot to work on. There's no fact about there's no hiding that. What is the soon-to-be solution? Because the goal is to three-peat. That is the goal right now. You want that three-peat to occur. You want to get the number 1 seed. And by the way, because of how easy the schedule is for the remainder of the season for the Buffalo Bills, you're probably going to have to win out. You're going to have to finish the season 16-1. That is not going to be easy to do, because Buffalo's got a very easy schedule here. And I'll show that right now on the screen for you guys. That is the remaining schedule for the Bills and the Chiefs. I saw some Chiefs fans out there who were trying to be optimistic and say that the 49ers would beat the Bills. I don't know why anyone would have thought that. Forget about the weather. The weather is not why San Francisco lost, let alone got blown out. They lost because Buffalo was a way better football team than San Francisco. When you look at the remaining schedules, Buffalo's got a very easy schedule. They only have 1 playoff team on their schedule. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, the exact opposite. Everyone on their schedule is a playoff team except for 1, and that is Cleveland. So this is going to be a very tough stretch. And by the way, Trey, I see your comments about the defensive backs. We're going to get into that shortly, because that is another big talking point. Not as big, but that is a big talking point. And I do see your comment too, Robert. Aiden O'Connell looked like Joe Montana. Yeah, he did, unfortunately. He really did. Fortunately, it didn't cost the Chiefs a win at the end of the day. But we'll get into that shortly. This is not going to be an easy stretch here. Now, are the Chiefs going to drop a game? I think they drop 1. But boy, if the Bills do not beat Detroit, you gotta finish the season 16-1. I mean, essentially, you're not losing the rest of the year if you want not just the three-peat, but also the number 1 seed, and that would be significant, because we know what the Chiefs did last year in the de facto self-imposed bye week last year in Week 18, when they rested all the starters and they put only starter was Chris Jones up until he got his incentive. So Kansas City, I mean, they've got to improve. And can DJ Humphries help out with that? Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes for a moment here, because Patrick Mahomes, his stat line, he's actually playing a lot better in the last 6 games compared to the first 6 games. The first 6 games, he had 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The last 6 games, he has thrown, 5, 6, 9, 12, 13 touchdowns and 3 picks. The only interceptions he's thrown in the last 6 games was the Raiders game, not the most recent Raiders game, the one in Vegas, and that was the one where the Chiefs had a massive stand inside the 5 when the Raiders brought the ball that far, the Raiders defense, that is. That was an awesome moment. And then the other 2 were against Buffalo. One was on the second play of the game. The other one was late in the game when the Chiefs were down by 9 and trying to move the ball fast down the field with less than 2 minutes to go. I mean, listen, it still counts, but it's not like, that's a throw that would normally be made in that situation. But at the end of the day, it's 13 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, the 13 touchdowns, that's not anything great, but it's also not, I mean, it's definitely, again, it's better than what Mahomes has done. He's had 3 touchdown performances in 3 different games, against the Bucs, against the Buffalo Bills, and against the Panthers. So he's playing much better football lately, 100% playing a lot better football. However, Patrick Mahomes' sack numbers have skyrocketed in addition to his touchdown numbers, while his interception numbers have gone down. In the last 2 games alone, he's been sacked 5 times each. Altogether, Patrick Mahomes has been sacked during these 6 games, 10, 20, 21 times. 21 times. during this 6-game window that I keep referencing here. Why are some things not panning out for the Chiefs offense? Because even though the numbers are great, they should be better. Patrick Mahomes has missed Xavier Worthy on some deep passes multiple times. Why is that? A big reason for that is Mahomes not getting the ball to Worthy on time, forcing Worthy to kind of make difficult catches near the sidelines. Now, should Worthy learn to keep his feet in bounds? Yes, but let's back it up a bit because the ball should never be placed there in the first place. Xavier Worthy has had a couple of easy walk-in touchdowns that should have happened but didn't happen. So, again, why is Mahomes not getting the ball to Worthy on time and at the right spot? The pass rush, it's getting to him because of the poor pass blocking from the offensive tackles. Now you still, let's just say DJ Humphries is going to be at his Pro Bowl form from a couple of years ago. That's great. But what about the right tackle? Well, you'd rather get the left tackle solved because right now there's no viable option for right tackle. But at least with the right tackle, that's not your blind side. So I think with Mahomes, he can at least manage that if his blind side more times than not is protected. Because if you have that protection, I think Mahomes can get the ball to anybody. I don't care if Sky Moore is your number one wide receiver. He may drop the ball more often because he'll be getting the ball more often, but at least you'll have an opportunity to get the ball more often to anyone, including a Sky freaking Moore. Because when you're not getting the pass protection you need, you're going to be under pressure and you're going to probably throw the ball in places you do not intend to throw to. And sometimes that can lead to really bad things. Fortunately, it hasn't been the case because Mahomes only has 3 picks. One of them was a tip pass against the Raiders. The other one was just a really terrible decision by Mahomes. And the third one I mentioned, it was just, game was out of reach and they're just trying to hurry up for anything. And that's why it was picked off. So Mahomes is playing better football. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But if he has that pass protection, those numbers could go up more. I mean, look at the passing yards in the Buffalo game, 196 yards. If he has that pass protection on that play when Xavier Worthy couldn't bring in the pass, I think you have at least 250 because Mahomes had a deep pass, big time touchdown throw to Worthy on that one that they missed out on. That would have been a big one right there. That would have been a big one. And you've had a few more of those, I think, against the Raiders. Actually, I'll say this, and this is not on the offensive tackles. This is on Travis Kelce. I said this on Twitter, and God forbid you ever criticize Travis Kelce because listen, you guys know me. I'm a big fan of Travis Kelce just as much as the next Chiefs fan and just as much as the next Swiftie. Listen, I don't care what backlash I get for saying this. The Swifties are honestly getting to a point where they're really goddamn annoying. If you even give the slightest bit of criticism towards Travis Kelce, you get vilified for this. I posted and I understand the pushback from this is that the Chiefs should have ran the football rather than thrown it on that 3rd and 2 play that they missed Xavier Worthy wide open. But Travis Kelce lined up as a fullback. He shifted over to the right side of the line of scrimmage, and he completely misses the pass rusher. Doesn't even make an effort to block. And in doing so, Mahomes, unable to step up in the pocket, has to release that faster than he wants to, and he misses Xavier Worthy on what would have been the kill shot to end that football game. Now, again, I understand. You probably should have ran the football in that moment, but that play call worked. Worthy completely on a play where you only have one pass catcher. That one pass catcher burned his assignment, the cornerback defending him, and all he had to do was just have the ball thrown in his lap, and he would have had a touchdown there. And Mahomes, unfortunately, overthrew that because Kelce misses a block. Now, again, I'm not saying, Kelce, caught him or anything like that, but goddamn, dude. Yeah, Timothy says the Swifties will swarm you. Yeah, I mean, listen, at the beginning it was cool and cute and adorable and oh my God, now it's like, okay, you guys think you know football when you really don't. You just started watching football a year ago. Kelce should have picked up that block right there. And listen, Kelsey's been actually good with his blocking this year. And I know there's a big narrative out there that he can't block. That's not true at all. But on that play, he completely missed on that block. And he's got to own responsibility for it. And listen, I don't know what was going on with Kelsey in that game. I know Andy Reid, it was shown on camera. Andy Reid went over to him to talk to him at one point. He did not stick around to talk to anyone after the game. He immediately left for the locker room. It looked like he was ignoring one of the PR people who was trying to talk to him. And downstairs, right in front of the elevators, right beside the locker room, the Hunt family, they're always there waiting. Andy Reid's wife is there waiting to greet all the players. He completely just gave Tammy Reid the cold shoulder. Didn't even fist bump. Maybe he listen, he was looking down the whole time. I don't think it was like, oh, Tammy's here. No, I'm not going to fist bump. No, I don't think it was anything like that. My point is he was very frustrated. Didn't even bother looking up to any of the fans, ownership, Andy Reid's wife, the people who were always there to greet them after a game. So I think that, plus I think he had a lot of family in town. And so he wanted to break the franchise record with everyone, in attendance. I get that. Tony Gonzalez was upset because he did not break the record for most receiving yards by a tight end in NFL history when all he needed was 2 yards. But the Chiefs wanted to play it safe and not let Denver come back in that game. Plus, that was like, the Chiefs were snapping a 12-game losing streak. So they really wanted to win that game and pull off a big upset against an undefeated Broncos team at the time. But as far as Kelsey and his attitude in that game, I mean, it definitely seemed like something was off. And there was a little bit of a weird stretch where Kelsey dropped a pass, Noah Gray dropped a pass, and then DeAndre Hopkins, of all people, dropped a pass. So there was that weird little sequence of events where that was happening over and over again. But listen, if you look at the Chiefs, they've been playing better football. The Chiefs are the best third down offense in the NFL. And I think DeAndre Hopkins has been a big factor in that. And I mentioned Patrick Mahomes' stats, 13 touchdowns and 2 picks in the last 6 games. Oh, who joined 6 games ago? Oh, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins. Your top wide receivers were who 6 weeks ago? Justin Watson and Juju Smith-Schuster? Those were your top wide receiver. Xavier Worthy. I mean, that's not a good. Well, listen, Justin Watson was one of the more productive wide receivers last year, and that's not really a good thing. No Rashee Rice, no Hollywood Brown. Juju's kind of been up and down with his injuries this year. But when you look at the Chiefs right now, they have DeAndre Hopkins, who is getting better and better with his connection with Mahomes. Travis Kelce had a very quiet game a couple of weeks ago. Played much better in this last game, I thought. I know he didn't get the touchdown, but he's 5th in the NFL in pass receptions this year. Noah Gray continuing to get more involved. Xavier Worthy, he and Mahomes, they're continuing to get into a rhythm here. And again, I know we're not getting the Xavier Worthy that was as advertised, but Xavier Worthy is continuing to get more and more and more involved. He caught 5 passes in this game. That's the most he's had in the game so far this year, and obviously the most in his career because he's a rookie. But 5 catches, 7 targets. Okay, all right. Sounds like you're starting to get into a rhythm with Xavier Worthy. Now, the deep passes are not there yet. You've only seen it once, and that was against the Chargers. But I guarantee you it'll get there eventually. There's no way it does not happen, especially in this offense when Andy Reid has found ways to get Worthy wide open down the field. It has worked, and I'm sure it will get going at some point this year. But at the end of the day, you're starting to get healthier. There's a lot of talk about Hollywood Brown expected to come back for either week 16, that Saturday, December 21st game against Houston, or on Christmas Day when the Chiefs play the Steelers in Pittsburgh in week 17. So you're starting to get healthy. By the way, you got Isaiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu back. So you're starting to play better and better. Look, we've been doing this podcast for 34 minutes now. The first 2 minutes was me saying hello and doing the podcast sponsor. The rest of it, we've been talking about the offense, and a majority of it revolving around the left tackle spot. So if DJ Humphries can play better, or I'm sorry, if he can play better than Wanya Morris, Dude, I think Mahomes is going to start hitting those passes down the field, those wide open receivers, those wide open pass catchers. He'll have the time he needs to throw. That is what this Chiefs team desperately needs right now. 100%. Yeah, Chris has a really good point here, and I've mentioned this before. Worthy was originally supposed to be the number 3 and slowly integrate into the game. He's done decent for what he's been asked to do. So, yeah, I've said this before. Like, the things that Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice were supposed to do this year, unfortunately, they're both hurt. You have Xavier Worthy having to do things that he was not originally expected to do. So I think with the Chiefs right now, they're still working on that. And Worthy's getting better. Can Worthy get more catch? Can he essentially have better stats if Mahomes has the time to throw? Yes. That is what a lot of people are banking on right now. Here's my thing. DJ Humphries does not need to be a Pro Bowler. He just needs to be freaking average. I mean, that's not the standard at left tackle in Kansas City when you have Patrick Mahomes. But at this rate right now, if you have just an average offensive tackle on both sides, Patrick Mahomes is going to be playing much better. No question about it. Because Wanya Morris is not average. He is not even below average. That dude might be the worst left tackle, and the only guy worse than him might be Kingsley Suamataia. You have 2 terrible left tackles, maybe the 2 worst left tackles in the NFL. And when you look at the Chiefs, they desperately need DJ Humphries to just be average. Anything better than average, you hit the jackpot. This is a big help that you'll get that number 1 seed, and you're on your way to a 3-peat. Heather says average equals upgrade with 2 Ds. Yeah. Never heard that one before, but we'll take it. D-Hop could teach Worthy a few things. Yeah, it certainly could. And I know Worthy did an interview on the Rich Eisen show saying that he has been picking DeAndre Hopkins' brain and trying to learn a lot from him. So that's a good guy to learn from. Absolutely a good guy to learn from. By the way, Andy Reid did talk to the media and was asked about DJ Humphries and whether he could play. Andy Reid did not commit to a starter for this game, but he did say that they're going to go through practice this week, evaluate DJ Humphries and see where he's at, which makes sense because he is coming off an injury. But I'm going to say this right now. I don't care if DJ Humphries got signed the morning of Sunday night football against the Chargers. That with 0 practices, I would still take DJ Humphries. Listen, you're playing left tackle. I'm not saying that position is quote unquote easy, but it's not like you have to learn a very serious and completely difficult scheme in order to play left tackle. You're protecting the quarterback. Either that or you're moving forward on rushing plays. That's it. Listen, we'll get into the Chiefs and Chargers breakdown on Wednesday's podcast, but let me just say this right now. Run the damn ball. Andy Reid even said in the press conference that he could have done a better job of running the football in last week's game. I'm glad you recognize it, but why after the fact? I don't want to hear about this after the fact. And Andy Reid's done this a lot in his career. And listen, he's Andy Reid. Okay, he's Andy Reid. But we get this a lot from Andy Reid where he says, well, I could have done this and it would have been, yeah, I know you could have. I'm watching from my couch and I could have said that. 7 rushes for Isaiah Pacheco, 7 rushes for Kareem Hunt. I know Kareem Hunt's yard per carry average is not the best in the NFL. It's at 3.7. Okay, it's not great. It's not wonderful either. His longest run this year, I think, is 17 yards. So Kareem Hunt hasn't necessarily been that home run hitter like he was his first time he was with the Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco had a 34-yard run in this game, and that's been the best run by a Chiefs running back, I think, by anyone on the Chiefs, as a matter of fact, including Mahomes. I know Mahomes had a big run a couple of weeks ago against the Panthers, but that 34-yard run is the best by any team. And I saw someone in the comments at the beginning of the podcast mention red zone offense has got to improve. Red zone offense was starting to look good coming off the bye week. Did he miss the PAT? Oh no, that was a field goal. Okay. This is what happens when you rely on the Browns to have to beat a division rival of yours. And I'd be very curious to see how Bo Nix does against the Browns defense, especially Myles Garrett and company there. I'm very curious to see how that looks. Oh, he dropped an F-bomb there. Jameis Winston letting it be known. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, the red zone. It was looking good coming off the bye week. Like, the Chiefs got way better in the red zone. Their third down offense has improved a lot. But, boy, now that red zone offense has reverted back to being bad. That's got to improve. Listen, if you can be the best third down offense in the NFL, if you can find a way to move the football, you can find a way to improve in the red zone. The Chiefs were, 1 of 5 in the red zone? That's unacceptable. You've got to be much better than that. Got to be much better than that. I think they had a very similar, I think they were 1 of 4 against Denver, and that one touchdown came on a 4th down play to Travis Kelce. I mean, that's nice, but you don't want to have to do that on 4th down. That's not what you want to have. Real quickly, I want to go to the defensive side. I know a lot of people are criticizing the defense, both locally and nationally, talking about how the defense is not playing as well. I mean, listen, Aiden O'Connell, he looked like he was an all-pro quarterback. But I think a lot of people are forgetting the fact that the Chiefs held the Raiders to 19 points. Now, did they get fortunate with Daniel Carlson missing some kicks? Yeah, but they were all from 50 yards out. That's what you're supposed to do when you're a defensive football team. If you're going to let them get in field goal range, well, at least make it difficult. And the Chiefs defense was able to do that against the Raiders, and essentially holding them to 19 points. This was a mishap that was not even caused by the Chiefs, but that fumble in the end there, the controversial fumble that everyone's talking about when they don't have a rule book in front of them. Listen, if they have a mishap, you cannot apologize for it. What did Kansas City have last year when it came to mishaps? They kept dropping the football. Was it caused by any of the opposing defenses? No. Did any of the opposing defenses apologize for that? Hell no. They took advantage of it. That is what you do in this sport. The Chiefs have not been involved in a lot of games where there have been turnovers. Kansas City's been taking care of the ball a lot better lately, but they're not forcing a lot of turnovers either. And when the Raiders made the biggest mistake of the game, Kansas City capitalized. Rather than saying, oh man, they made a really bad mistake here, they jumped on it. And I don't know. Listen, I think the Raiders took a timeout way too early. Even putting themselves in that position, they've got no one to blame but themselves for that one. It's funny. I saw because the conspiracy theories are out there. Somebody said that Taylor Swift worked her voodoo magic and was using Aiden O'Connell's voice to make the center think that the quarterback was calling for the snap. Obviously, no one believes that, but it's funny to see that out there. It's funny to see people just want to say things just to say things, but neither here nor there. Yeah, I do. Tom, I'll get to that in a second. The whole thing with the Chiefs defense right now, the Panthers game, yeah, the Chiefs defense was bad. Why was it bad? The pass rush was there. Bryce Young was getting pressured all over the place, but the Chiefs just kept allowing. I mean, even when you had your best pass rush, Bryce Young found a hole. He found an open receiver, and that was enough to exploit the Chiefs defense in that game. The Buffalo game, let's get into this one here, because I think a lot of people look, I mean, that Denver receiver just dropped a wide open pass, forcing 3rd down. And I guarantee you, if the Browns get a stop here on 3rd down, that's going to be a big reason why, and they're not going to apologize for it. That's football for you folks. In that Buffalo game, I think the defense is getting more shit than they really deserve. Look, the score was 16-14 at halftime. And it was the same exact score going into the 4th quarter. The Chiefs defense on the road in Buffalo, of all places, they were getting stops. They were 100% getting stops. But what happened with the Chiefs offense? They never took advantage of that. When the Chiefs defense forced a 3-and-out, Buffalo forced a 3-and-out. When the Chiefs forced Buffalo to punt after a 6-play drive, Buffalo forced the Chiefs to punt after a 6-play drive. So it was just a weird 3rd quarter where both offenses were mimicking the other. Not that, that's the way they wanted it to go down, but you got to be better than that. And unfortunately, when your defense keeps giving you opportunities and you don't take advantage of it, the defense is going to get tired and they're going to get worn out. And Buffalo did exactly that. They had 2 lengthy touchdown drives to tire out the Chiefs defense. That is how you win and lose football games in the NFL. I mean, turnovers are a big part of that, excuse me, as well. But tiring out a defense like that, time of possession, that's a big one. Time of possession is such an underrated stat. I don't think people realize that. The Chiefs were dominating time of possession in the first quarter against the Raiders. The Raiders won the game when it came to time of possession, almost won the game itself. And obviously, Kansas City was very fortunate on that mishap. It didn't happen that way. Yeah, 31 minutes and 12 seconds in favor of the Raiders. Chiefs were at 28-48. You can't lose time of possession like that when you dominated in the first quarter. Najee Johnson got benched in this game. Keith Taylor briefly played, and then they switched to Josh Williams. I don't know what took so long. I guess they were just wanting to give Najee Johnson every opportunity. But I guess when you were allowing Aiden O'Connell to go out there and look great, that is when you had to make the move to a different cornerback. And that's exactly what the Chiefs did. When you look at the Raiders, when was it even? Before halftime? I mean, the Raiders got going in the second half with a couple of touchdowns. At one point, took the lead. What was it, in the third quarter? No, or early in the fourth quarter, my bad. On a 2-play drive, mind you. Fortunately, the Chiefs got a field goal immediately. But boy, you don't ever want it to come down to that. When you make Aiden O'Connell look like that, that's not good. I still think Josh Williams is the right guy moving forward, and I really hope he's starting because Justin Herbert will 1,000% look at his direction. I think Najee Johnson is more of a nickel or a dime guy that's better for defensive back blitzes. And we haven't seen the Chiefs utilize that much recently. Tom says, how many situational ways have the Chiefs won games this year? A lot. Situational football is a big deal. Listen, Joe Burrow, obviously having a phenomenal season, has the best numbers of any quarterback. But when the game is close and on the line, his situational stats are not very good. We saw it against Baltimore. We saw it against actually both Baltimore games. Even though they got the touchdown there, I mean, you had a wide open player in the end zone, but neither here nor there. There was another game I can't recall. There were some situational stuff there that could have been better. The Chiefs, yeah, in the weirdest ways, they have been better in situational moments. Sometimes it leads to the opposition cracking under pressure. But boy, you gotta find a way to close out in those games, and the Chiefs have found a way more times than not. So you have Josh Williams, who is expected to be your cornerback 2, opposite of Trent McDuffie. I saw a comment from Carlos talking about McDuffie this season. Yeah, listen, McDuffie, the last 3 games has not been at his best. I would say this is the worst 3-game stretch of Trent McDuffie's young career, for sure. Now, listen, Richard Sherman had a stretch like this. Ty Law has had a couple of stretches like this. Even the best cornerbacks, or even the best players at their positions in NFL history have had, a couple of weeks where they don't look very good. Let's turn it around. And what if they start blitzing more? Does that change things a little bit? Perhaps. I don't know. But they've definitely got to improve on the defensive unit there. Definitely got to be much better. Because I think if Josh Williams plays better, I think the sacks will be there. Previously, we thought the Chiefs playing with a lead would have allowed that. They played with the lead or were tied in the Carolina game, never trailed in that game. But the sacks were hard to come by in that one because Bryce Young just kept finding wide open guys in that game. I mean, this defense is better than that. But in general, I do think the defense is getting a little too much heat when, look, the Carolina game, yeah, that was a bad game. The Buffalo game, I mean, listen, you held Buffalo scoreless in the third quarter and you gave your offense opportunities to recover and take the lead. They didn't do that in this one. They didn't. So they've got to be much better than that. with the offensively speaking, taking advantage of these. Because again, the Chiefs defense in that Raiders game, it's not like they let the Raiders light up the scoreboard. It was not pretty, but it's not like they were letting them score 30 or 40 points. So let's slow down a bit on the defense for this game. The Chiefs should have surpassed the 30-point threshold in this game. Certainly should have had more than 19, more than 20 if you hit Xavier Worthy at the end of the game, but they didn't. Now, let me just say this. Kansas City had issues last year, right? With bad pass protection. We went over this early in the podcast. The Chiefs have had bad offensive tackle play for a couple of years now. The defense was not. The defense hardly had any issues last year. Defense has a couple of more issues this year than last year. Not a lot with the sack totals. They don't have much. They haven't been able to defend a tight end very well this year. But the defense is still playing good. Let's not get that twisted. The defense is playing good football. They're not letting teams light up the scoreboard week in and week out. Okay, they allowed 30 to Buffalo and 27 to Carolina. Well, they held the Raiders to 19. I mean, when you can hold anyone to less than 20 points, and I don't care. Oh, I'm sorry, they held them to 17. And I don't care how many field goals the Raiders miss. You force long field goals, and they screwed up in the end. That's not your fault. You got to go out there and capitalize, if you're the offense, of the opportunities the defense is giving you. Again, I do think the defense needs to improve, but I think the offense, if they take advantage of that, of these opportunities, these stops, guess what? You're not playing close games at the end and relying on a miracle. I mean, is that wrong? Greg asks a good question. I don't have the answer to it, unfortunately. Why can't the Chiefs defend tight ends this year? I haven't really been able to really dissect that. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately. It's a really good question. It's definitely a question that needs to be asked to Andy Reid and Spags this week. Why have the tight ends been able to do so well against Kansas City's defense? I'd say that's probably like the biggest glaring hole on Kansas City's defense is defending the tight end all year long. That's been the only big major weakness all year long with the Chiefs defense. I think overall they're playing great football still. I said at the beginning of the year too, without L'Jarius Sneed, I think you're going to notice a bit of a dip with the Chiefs defense, and you're seeing that. Now, the run defense is way better. They've got the third best run defense in the league. So ultimately, I still think this Chiefs team is defensively one of the best in the NFL. And I think they'll get better if they continue to use those blitzes more. I think that's where Nazeeh Johnson is far more useful. So hopefully the Chiefs can use that more moving forward with their defense. Okay, a couple other things to get into here before we sign off. So the Pro Bowl leaders are out right now. The leaders for each conference at every position. This is interesting. So the Chiefs have 4 players who are currently leaders at their positions. You have long snapper James Winchester, good long snapper, been very good at it for a long time. You have Creed Humphrey, and you have Joe Thuney. The 4th player, you will never believe who the 4th player is. Carson freaking Steele. Now, mind you, there are not a lot of fullbacks in the NFL right now. But it's still funny because Carson Steele has not played great this year. He's had a few fumbles this year. If you told me someone named Carson was going to be a Pro Bowler for the Chiefs, I would have thought it would have been Carson Wentz. I would have said, okay, if you're telling me that's going to happen, then I guess Mahomes got injured, but Carson Wentz stepped up and played well in his position. Like Carson Steele, a Pro Bowler? I did not see that one coming. You know what this reminds me of? 2015 when the Royals, they voted almost every player into the All-Star game. Remember that? They almost voted Omar Infante into the All-Star game. It's funny because there was the MLB provided a graphic every week showing all the league leaders and All-Star votes. The Royals covered the entire field because they put a picture of, the left fielder, the center fielder, the first baseman, and so on. You had every single Royals player at every position except for center fielder, and it was Mike Trout of the Angels. Every single player was a Royals player. When I think of Carson Steele as a Pro Bowler, that's what I thought of. By the way, Pro Football Focus, they only recognize 5 fullbacks in the NFL, and Carson Steele is not considered a fullback in their eyes. Now, the Chiefs, on their depth chart, they have Steele listed as a fullback. The Chiefs have not been using him like an actual fullback, like a Tony Richardson or a Kimball Anders or a Mike Cox, Anthony Sherman, not those kinds of fullbacks. But he's listed as one, and he's coming for short yardage situations. But Carson Steele is a Pro Bowler. He's a leading vote getter right now. Look, there are obviously a lot of players who get undeserving Pro Bowl nods. Orlando Brown had him during his time in Kansas City. Frank Clark definitely got a few undeserving nods. I mean, Frank Clark was great in the postseason, but in the regular season, not the same. So that was interesting. And then listen, some guys go based off name recognition. I mean, it's possible Travis Kelce could still get in based on a slow start, and the Swifties. We've already covered that on this podcast. It's possible Mahomes gets in, although I don't think Mahomes will get in this year. I really do think that the 3 quarterbacks this year from the AFC will be Lamar, Burrow, and Allen. Maybe not in that order, but those are going to be your 3. Or at least they should be your 3. And ultimately, I think this might be the first time Mahomes does not get voted into the Pro Bowl. But listen, it's a Pro Bowl. It's not like it's the end-all, be-all of someone's career. Listen, I think even coaches and general managers know this is a popularity contest. Mitchell Schwartz was a phenomenal offensive tackle in Kansas City. Never once got a Pro Bowl bid. So coaches understand. The All-Pro. I think they get it wrong a little bit, but 99% of the time they get it right. Whereas with the Pro Bowl, you get a lot of things wrong in the Pro Bowl. A lot of things for sure. Oh, the Browns just responded with a touchdown of their own. Okay, we're almost tied at 7. So we'll see what happens with the PAT. I do want to talk about this Christmas movie that came out with the Chiefs. I don't know if you guys saw it. Listen, I'm not a Hallmark Christmas movie person. In fact, I think the 2 hours I watched the Hallmark Channel Saturday night, and I was going back and forth between that and WWE Survivor Series, which Survivor Series was way better. But look, I'm watching this Hallmark movie, and listen, I'm not a very difficult person to please when it comes to movies. Listen, I actually love the Star Wars prequel trilogy movies. Like, if I can enjoy the Star Wars trilogy, I can enjoy any movie, okay? I'm not very hard to please. I know there are a lot of people out there who want to be, these massive film critics who will point out every single thing. Okay, all right. Those are miserable people. This movie was bad. This movie was awful. I mean, listen, it was cool that the Chiefs were on it, and that you saw Donna Kelce, you saw Andy Reid, you saw some of the players, current and former players. Trent Green was in it. Christian Okoye had a really funny moment. But the synopsis was so bad. So bad. Nia Jax could play right tackle. She probably could. She probably could do a better job than Jawan Taylor. But I'm watching. Listen, I don't know what I'm looking for when I'm watching a Hallmark Christmas movie. Are Hallmark movies supposed to be cheesy? I guess. Spoiler alert. I'm just gonna say it because I don't care. The synopsis was weird. So this guy who is not from Kansas City, he works for the Chiefs as the director of fan engagement. I can't talk about this movie with a straight face. I'm sorry, I can't. But yeah, so he came, I guess they're like picking who the fan of the year is in this family, the way that the husband and wife met, and they have generations of diehard Chiefs fans, and the young gal and the family, she comes across the director of fan engagement, and so they're trying to introduce the two of them and get them hooked up. And the family that's up for which is where the gal's family comes from, they have a very lucky winter hat, and the grandfather suffered a heart attack one Christmas and didn't wear the lucky hat because he was on a hospital bed, and the Chiefs lost that game. So this lucky hat is like, and by the way, it's like the Chiefs fans in town, they see the gal. Oh, we know you. You're the gal with the hat. It's like, okay. People don't talk like that, okay? I get it's a movie and all that. Now, there were some heartwarming moments where the director of fan engagement saw the father who, was told by the daughter, I want Christmas tickets to the Christmas game. Oh, well, they're sold out. Okay, I'm going to ask Santa. And it's like, oh, what do we do? And the director of fan engagement's like, hey, look, I work for the Chiefs. Here you go. Like, that was a cool moment. And then when they got the original seats from Municipal Stadium, like that was a heartwarming moment right there. Okay, I can dig that. I can get behind those things, but it's like when they had their like temporary breakup because he called it a silly hat. I'm like, God damn it, dude. There are people who break up over much more serious shit than this. Like, this is just okay. Now you're just like, you're kind of pushing. Again, I don't watch Hallmark movies. Yeah, I see your comment, Lisa. Again, I don't know what I'm looking for when I watch these things. This is my one and only time watching a Hallmark Christmas movie because, again, it's Chiefs themed. You got a lot of Chiefs people in it, so makes sense. But I'm sorry, this was a bad movie. This was a bad movie. And by the way, a lot of people criticize the ending of this because Santa Claus brought the hat back. Okay, that was a weird. So Santa had the hat the whole time because she lost the hat at one point. And then in the end, you don't get to see the game. You don't get to see who wins. Do they put on the lucky hat? Do the Chiefs win? Do they go and win the Super Bowl again? Like, we don't get to see that. We don't get to see that unfold. My response was, you could just assume that it came down to the wire and the Chiefs had something controversial happen in their favor and they won by 2 points, and Twitter had a meltdown over it. So you can probably just assume that is what happened at the end of the game. Use your imagination on that one. And that's a fun way to use your imagination. Just so many people lost their shit over a football game. A nice little defensive touchdown, if that scores, for Cleveland there. Okay, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Covered a lot of ground here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. A lot of talk with the offense and what it needs to do moving forward. Can they play better? A lot of things we talked about here. So I appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate all the interaction here. A lot of great comments. So thank you all for joining me for this live stream on Facebook and YouTube. And for those of you who are listening to the archive version, definitely appreciate you guys as well. Erica says it was good for a Hallmark movie. Trust me. Erica, you know more about Hallmark movies than I do. I will take your word for it. Your word is better than mine. No, that touchdown does not count, by the way. Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Please share the podcast links with your friends. Let them know about the Chiefs Zone podcast. Otherwise, I will talk to you all Wednesday for the Chiefs and Chargers breakdown. Also, Red Friday live chat will be Friday early in the afternoon because Friday evening we have a very, very, very special guest. A former Chief will be on this podcast. We pretty much got it scheduled. We're just waiting for it to happen, and we're expecting it to go down this Friday night. So tune in to all of that. I'm Farzin Vasugian. I'm out. Take care.